I wasn't supposed to see the final version. Daniel said the investor deck was almost ready, just formatting changes before the Series B call. I opened the PDF anyway. Slide 12. Founder profile. Daniel Reed, 41. Divorced. No dependents. We had been married for 14 years. Our daughter was asleep upstairs, and according to the document he was about to show investors in the morning. I didn't exist. Divorced. No dependents. The words sat there in clean neutral Helvetica on slide 12. It wasn't highlighted. It wasn't bold. It wasn't dramatic. It was just factual. Like the numbers on the revenue slide. Like the churn rate on slide 7. Like a truth that didn't need to be defended because no one in the room would question it. I read it once, then again. My eyes moved back up to the founder profile. Daniel Reed, age 41. Divorced. No dependents. The kitchen was too quiet for that sentence. The dishwasher clicked softly as it shifted into drying mode. The heat vent under the window blew warm air against my bare feet. Outside. Seattle rain tapped the glass in a slow, patient rhythm, like the city was doing what it always did. While my life cracked open in silence. Upstairs, Lily was asleep, 8 years old. Her door half open. Nightlight casting a small pool of amber across the hallway. We had been married for 14 years. And according to the investor deck Daniel was about to present in the morning, I didn't exist. For a few seconds my brain tried to rescue me, tried to label it a formatting mistake, a template error. Some junior analyst copying an old founder bio from a pitch competition. Then I noticed the file name. Apex Metrics Series B IMILU Dreed Bash PDF Final. And the metadata when I right-clicked and checked it said, last modified, 23 days ago. Modified by Daniel Reed. Not a junior analyst. He's not a designer. Daniel, I swallowed so hard it hurt. I closed the laptop. Then I opened it again, because there are moments when your mind understands something before your heart is willing to. And I needed my heart to catch up. My name is Rebecca Reed. I'm 38, a CPA by training, and the kind of woman who spent her 20s reading contracts the way other people read novels. I used to like the certainty of rules, debit and credit, liability and asset, cause and effect. Daniel used to like that about me. He called it my steel spine. He'd kiss the top of my head when I corrected his math. He'd grin when I challenged his assumptions. We met at the University of Washington. He was computer science smart, fast, magnetic in rooms full of quieter people. I was accounting steady, practical, the one who asked hard questions. We made sense. When he founded Apex Metric, his SaaS analytics startup, I was the one who filed the incorporation paperwork. I drafted the initial cap table on our little dining table in Ballard. I worked alongside his first lawyer to structure founder shares, early option pools, tax elections, things that sounded boring until they weren't. In the beginning, it was ours. Then Lily came, and Apex Metric took off. Daniel started talking in bigger numbers, investors, runway metrics. I started talking in smaller ones, daycare, pediatric appointments, packing lunches. We agreed, mutually, we told ourselves that I'd step back for a while. I'd keep my license active, take occasional consulting work, and be the steady parent while Daniel did the startup chaos thing. That, while lasted years. Not because Daniel forced it, because life has a way of making you forget what you planned before the days got full. And somewhere along the way, my role shifted. Not dramatically, not with a fight, just quietly. I became the person who made sure everything ran smoothly so he could be brilliant. I don't say that bitterly. I used to feel proud of it. Until the day I saw the word divorced in his investor deck. The red flags had been there, small enough to ignore, sharp enough to sting when they landed. He stopped inviting me to company events. It's just bored people. He'd say, tightening his cufflinks without looking at me. You hate those things. I didn't hate them. I used to host dinners and pitch dinners and fundraisers back when Daniel needed me to look like the composed, intelligent partner beside him. Back when we were still building the story together. He started saying my company instead of our company. He updated his LinkedIn banner from a photo of us hiking near Mount Rainier to a sleek skyline shot with the company logo. And one afternoon last spring, when I brought Lily's forgotten lunch to his office, I noticed something that should have made me stop right there. The framed family photo on his credenza was gone. The one with Lily in the middle, gap-toothed grin, Daniel's arm around my shoulders. In its place, a minimalist sculpture and an Apex Metric award plaque. I asked about it casually.
Did you move the photo?
Daniel didn't even blink. We're rebranding the space.
cleaner look.
He's cleaner. As if our family was clutter. That was the moment I ignored my intuition. I told myself it was startup optics, CEO branding. Investors liked simplicity. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself a lot of things. He's on the night I found the slide. Daniel emailed me the deck at 10:17 p.m. Can you skim for formatting issues? He wrote. Final pass before tomorrow's call. He didn't ask often anymore. Not since Apex Metric hired a real finance team. He's not since he started paying people to do the work I used to do for free because I believed in him. But I still had the old reflex. I opened it. At first everything looked normal. He's slide after slide. Revenue growth, customer logos, product roadmap, projections for the next 8 quarters. Then slide 12, founder profile divorced. No dependents. I scrolled down further, my fingers slightly numb on the trackpad. Risk disclosures. He's founder affirms no spousal equity claims or encumbrances. That wasn't just a relationship status. That was legal positioning. I felt a heat rise in my throat, like my body was trying to protest even if my mind stayed quiet. I almost shut the laptop and went to bed. That's the part I'm not proud of. Because the first instinct in betrayal isn't always rage. Sometimes it's denial. Sometimes it's exhaustion. Sometimes it's wanting your life to stay intact so badly you're willing to pretend the cracks are just shadows. But then I checked the document properties. Edited 3 weeks ago. By Daniel, that detail changed everything. This wasn't an accidental line typed by a designer. This was a decision Daniel made while living with me, while asking Lily about school. While eating the dinners I cooked. While sleeping in the same bed, or at least lying in it. I carried the laptop into the downstairs bathroom and locked the door. The overhead light was harsh, making my face look drained. I turned the faucet on, not because I needed water, but because I needed sound. Something steady to anchor me. I sat on the edge of the tub and stared at the screen. I told myself again, maybe it's legal shorthand. Maybe investors don't like complications. Maybe the lawyers suggested it. And Daniel just complied. But no spousal equity claims wasn't shorthand. It was a representation, and in Washington state community property, the default presumption is simple. Assets acquired during marriage belong to both spouses. If Daniel was raising a Series B at a valuation that would likely dwarf the early rounds, misrepresenting our marital status could be an attempt to keep that jump in value from becoming part of the marital estate. Not the company itself, not necessarily, but the value, the future. The piece of the story that mattered. My hands shook as I scrolled again. I hated that my body reacted like that. Like fear. Like grief. I wasn't afraid of Daniel physically. I was afraid of what it meant. That he could rewrite reality on paper and trust I wouldn't notice. Because he didn't think I would. In the bathroom, with the faucet running and the house asleep, I cried quietly. Not sobbing, not dramatic. Just tears sliding down while I pressed my knuckles against my mouth. And then I did the most unromantic thing possible. I took screenshots. Slide 12. The risk disclosure line. The metadata, I emailed them to myself. Then I uploaded them to a new cloud folder with a password Daniel wouldn't guess, and when I finally turned the faucet off, the silence felt different. Not comforting. Strategic. The next morning, Daniel left early, smelling like expensive cologne he hadn't worn in years. He kissed Lily on the forehead. He didn't kiss me. Big day, he said, grabbing his laptop bag. I looked at him and felt something inside me go still. Good luck, I said. He smiled, quick and easy. The CEO smile he wore like armor, and walked out into the gray Seattle morning. When the door closed, I didn't collapse. I cleaned the kitchen. I packed Lily's lunch. I drove her to school. I smiled at the crossing guard like nothing had happened. Because I had a child to protect. And because the best way to win against someone who's already writing you out of the story is to stop acting like you don't know the plot. I didn't confront Daniel that day. Instead, I called someone who understood both law and business. Laura Kim. Laura and I had worked together early in Apex Metrics formation. She'd handled corporate filings. She was sharp, direct, and allergic to nonsense. We met in South Lake Union at a cafe full of people typing on MacBooks. The air smelled like espresso and wet wool coats. I showed her the slides on my phone. She didn't react at first. Just stared. Then scrolled. Then she exhaled slowly. This isn't casual, she said. I thought maybe it was an optics thing. I admitted, hating the softness in my voice. Optics doesn't say no spousal equity claims. she replied. Is it illegal? I asked. Laura tilted her head. He's potentially misleading to investors. But the bigger issue is your rights. If the Series B closes under that representation, it complicates things. Not impossible, but it turns into a fight. A fight. I looked down at my hands. There was a faint smear of ink on my thumb from signing Lily's school form earlier. I don't want to destroy the company, I said, surprising myself with how quickly the words came. Lily's college, our stability. Laura nodded. Then you need someone strategic, family law but with business valuation experience, and you need independent counsel, not the company's lawyer, not Daniel's lawyer. I swallowed. Okay. Laura leaned forward. Rebecca, whatever you do next, don't tip him off before you have a plan. Founders move fast when they're threatened. That sentence hit me harder than anything else. Because I realized Daniel wasn't just my husband. He was a CEO who knew how to protect assets. And he had already started that afternoon. I sat in my car outside Lily's school for 10 minutes before picking her up. I stared at the steering wheel, listening to the faint hum of the engine. I didn't feel rage yet. I felt recalibration. I had been living in a version of reality that only existed because I agreed not to question it. And now, I couldn't unsee the paper truth. That night, after Lily went to bed, I stared at the living room wall where our wedding photo used to hang before Daniel suggested modernizing the space. I almost texted him. One sentence. Why does your deck say you're divorced? My fingers hovered over the screen. And then I stopped because Laura was right. If Daniel knew I knew, he would move, he would file something, transfer something, amend something, and I would spend months chasing him through paperwork while he smiled politely in court and called me emotional. No, if he wanted to play by documents, I could play too. The next day, I met Mark Feldman, a family law attorney with a reputation for understanding complex assets. His office overlooked Lake Washington. Everything smelled faintly like cedar and printer toner. Mark read the deck and the operating agreement clause without interrupting. When he finally looked up, his expression was calm, but not surprised. I've seen versions of this, he said. Founders simplifying marital status ahead of liquidity events. How bad is it? I asked. Mark leaned back. In Washington, absent a prenuptial agreement, equity and value acquired during marriage is presumptively community property. That's your baseline. The deck representation doesn't erase your rights, but it signals intent. Intent to do what? To shield, he said simply. Either to negotiate from a stronger position later, or to push you out quietly. My throat tightened. Mark continued. Now, timing is everything. If we intervene too loudly before the funding closes, investors could freeze. Valuation drops. That hurts your share, so we do nothing, I asked. No, he said. We do something measured. We send a formal request for clarification to his counsel and the lead investor. No accusation, just notice that creates a paper trail. It also forces correction. And if Daniel gets angry? I asked. Mark's gaze held mine. He will, but anger is not the legal standard. Evidence is, a small part of me wanted to cry again. Not because I was weak, because I was tired. Tired of being the stable one. Tired of being quietly erased. Mark slid a notepad toward me. One more thing. Do not confront him before we act. If he senses you're preparing, he can accelerate asset movement. I nodded slowly. And that's when Mark said the sentence that became my anchor. This is not about punishment, it's about preventing a financial ambush. I left his office with a plan. Not a fantasy. A plan for the next week. I became an actress in my own home. I smiled at Daniel. I asked about Lily's homework. I nodded at his comments about presser and closing the round. Inside, I was counting steps. Mark drafted a formal letter. The language was surgical, careful enough to avoid defamation, direct enough to force action. Please clarify the founder's marital status representations and any statements regarding absence of spousal equity claims, as such representations appear inconsistent with Washington community property law. Not, you lied, just clarify. We addressed it to Daniel's legal counsel. We copied the lead investor listed in the deck. Before sending, Mark warned me again. This may trigger a board review. Funding could be delayed, it won't be comfortable. Comfort wasn't an option anymore. 2 nights before we sent the letter, Daniel mentioned something casually at dinner. We might move some ownership into a new holding structure. He said, cutting his salmon like he was discussing weather. Cleaner for investors. My fork froze. That was it, the moment I almost made a mistake. My body surged with the urge to confront him. To demand the truth. To slam the deck on the table and watch his face change. I stood up too quickly, chair scraping the floor. Daniel looked up, eyebrows raised. You okay? I forced a breath. I'm fine, just forgot Lily's permission slip. I walked to the kitchen counter and gripped it until my knuckles turned white. My heart hammered like I'd sprinted. Upstairs, Lily laughed at something in her room, safe, unaware. I stepped into the pantry, closed the door halfway, and called Mark with shaking hands. I'm about to lose it, I whispered. Don't, Mark said. Not yet, tomorrow morning. Once the letter is out, he can't undo the paper trail. That night, I lay beside Daniel in bed, his back turned to me, phone glowing briefly in the dark before he tucked it under his pillow. I stared at the ceiling and repeated one sentence like a prayer. Hold steady. The letter went out at 9:05 a.m. the next morning. At 9:23, my phone started vibrating. Daniel called once, twice, 3 times. By the time I picked Lily up from school, my missed calls were in double digits. I didn't answer until I was parked safely at home with Lily inside, homework spread on the table, and my hands no longer shaking. I picked up on call 17. Rebecca, Daniel said, voice tight in a way I'd never heard. What the hell is this? What is what? I asked, keeping my tone calm. You contacted my lawyer? You copied? He stopped, breath sharp. You copied the lead investor. I asked for clarification, I said. If it's a mistake, it should be easy to correct. It's not that simple, he snapped. And yet you typed it, I replied quietly. Silence. Then his voice softened, too quickly, too carefully. This is going to create issues, it should, I said. Because I exist. He exhaled, angry now. You're going to tank the round. I'm not, I said. Your document did that. He hung up. My hands were steady when I set the phone down. That surprised me. It wasn't numbness. It was clarity. The board meeting within 48 hours, Apex Metrics board convened an emergency session. Mark didn't let me join. That would be messy, he said, but he had a corporate attorney partner present our position. The funding call was postponed. Daniel came home late that night. The rain had soaked his suit jacket. His hair was slightly out of place, the first crack in his CEO polish I'd seen in years. He didn't speak for a long time. He set his bag down, stared at the kitchen island where I had once drafted his first cap table, and finally said, Why would you do this to me? I let the question sit, then I said, I didn't do this to you. You did it to me? He flinched, like the calm truth hurt more than yelling would have. It was advice, he said. Investors don't like complications, they want clean disclosure. I'm your wife? I said. Not a complication. He pressed his palms against the counter, jaw tight. I didn't think it mattered. That sentence, I didn't think it mattered, hit me harder than the slide ever did, because it revealed the real betrayal. Not that he was planning something, but that he had already decided my presence in his life was optional. Therapy and the second vulnerability. 2 days later, I sat in a therapist's office for the first time in my life. Dr. Morales' office was warm, with soft lighting and a faint scent of lavender. A rainstorm tapped the window gently, and for once it felt like the city was matching my mood instead of mocking it. I told her about the slide, about the divorced label, about the way Daniel said he didn't think it mattered. Dr. Morales listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, What did you feel first? I hesitated, embarrassed. Why? She asked. Because I'd built my identity around being the stable one, the smart one, the wife who kept everything together, and he erased me in a deck like I was an outdated logo. I feel replaceable, I admitted, voice small. Dr. Morales nodded. Being betrayed doesn't mean you are replaceable. It means he was willing to treat you that way. I felt tears rise, hot, sudden. This time I didn't hide them. And that was my second vulnerability, letting someone witness the grief I'd been controlling like a spreadsheet. The board required Daniel to correct disclosures. The lead investor demanded updated representations and an extra legal review. His funding wasn't destroyed, but it was delayed. The valuation dipped slightly. Not because the product was weaker, but because trust was. Daniel's credibility took a hit, and inside our home, something was beyond repair. Mark filed for divorce 2 weeks later, citing financial misrepresentation and seeking equitable distribution of marital assets, including Daniel's equity interests and any value appreciation during marriage. No screaming scene, no dramatic slap, just paperwork. Daniel tried to negotiate privately first. "Let's keep it out of court," he said, sitting across from me in the living room. His voice sounded tired. "For Lily? I want it calm," I said. "But calm doesn't mean unfair." He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. That's the thing about being underestimated. People get used to you staying small, they mistake your kindness for compliance. The negotiations took months, not because either of us wanted drama, but because startups don't divide neatly like bank accounts. We hired a business valuator, a forensic accountant. We traced equity options, vesting schedules, dilution from past rounds, projected value after Series B. It was complicated. It was expensive. It was real. Daniel's side tried the predictable arguments. He built the company. I wasn't involved day to day. Founder equity is personal. My contribution was supportive, not structural. Mark countered with documents, early formation records with my signature. Emails where Daniel thanked me for structuring the cap table. He's evidence of my career sacrifice and domestic labor, enabling his growth. Community property principles under Washington law, and the investor deck. That slide became a centerpiece. Not as proof I deserved punishment, but proof Daniel understood the legal implications and chose deception anyway. In the end, we reached a settlement that felt grounded, not magical. I received a negotiated equity percentage, structured as a buyout over time, tied to liquidity events. We sold the Queen Anne house and divided proceeds. We established joint custody, with a detailed parenting plan. Daniel retained operational control of Apex Metric, but the board imposed stricter governance oversight. No fantasy collapse, just consequences. After the divorce, I returned to consulting full-time. Not because I wanted revenge through success, but because I needed my own ground again. I joined a boutique firm that advised startups on compliance and financial structuring. I became the person founders called when they needed reality, not hype. Lily adjusted slowly. There were hard nights, tears, questions, anger. I stayed in therapy. I put Lily in therapy too, because she deserved support, not silence. I started running again, early mornings along the Burke-Gilman Trail. Cold air burning my lungs. The rhythm of my footsteps becoming something I could control. Sometimes I thought about that night in the bathroom, the faucet running, my hands shaking. I thought about how close I came to confronting Daniel too early. How easily he could have shifted assets if I'd let emotion take the wheel. And I realized something. My strength wasn't that I didn't feel pain. My strength was that I didn't let pain make my decisions for me. A year later, I met someone at a compliance conference in San Francisco. We've had coffee. We've had long conversations. Nothing dramatic, nothing rushed. Because I learned the hard way that real stability is quiet. It doesn't need to be sold. Sometimes, when Daniel and I exchange Lily at the curb, he looks at me like he wants to say something. Apology, maybe regret. Maybe just the realization that he underestimated the person who built the foundation under his feet. But he doesn't say it. And I don't need him to. Because the most powerful truth isn't what he admits. It's what I know. I was never a footnote, never a complication, never disposable. I was a partner, a builder, a mother, a professional. And when he tried to erase me with a slide, he taught me exactly what kind of man he was. So I did what I do best. I read the document, I found the lie, I responded with clarity. This wasn't revenge, it was accountability.